Hi, welcome back. Let us continue our discussion on the solution of Module 5 assignment. So, the next task was to create an API folder inside which you had to create two post submit files. As I have mentioned in the previous video, in the next assignment, we will discuss why we have named this folder as API. So please don't worry at this moment. The reason we have created signup underscore submit.php and login underscore submit.php is to make the signup and login modal work. Let us start with signup underscore submit.php file. The code was already provided to you to help you get started with the assignment. Let us discuss it. Here you can see we have used this code snippet. This is used to establish the connection to the database. Also notice, here I have used require, which is a statement. Earlier we used include to link the PHP files. Include and require both are almost the same, and the minute difference between them is not important to discuss at this point. Next, we are fetching the user information using the post superglobal variable and are storing them in the local variables. But notice, for the password, we are not storing the password as such in the database, because if we do, then anyone who is working on the code will know your password. Therefore, it is not ethical for a developer to store the user password in the database normally. So what we have done here, first, we have fetched the password and then we have encrypted it using the SHA-1 function. After encrypting, we are then sorting the password in the next database. Next, we are checking if the email matches from the users table or not. Then we are checking if the results has more than one row or not. If the row count is 0, this means that the user is not registered. And if the row count is not 0, this means the user is registered with the website. This code is basically to check that before we add the data to the database, we are checking if the user is registered or not. Now, if the row count is 0, then only we will proceed next where we will store the user information. Then we have this small MySQL I query that checks if the account is successfully created or not. Then we have an anchor tag for the home page. This is fairly simple code, we have already learned it. Next, we will discuss the login underscore submit.php code. Here, we need the session start function. Then we have this line to establish the connection to the database. The remaining code is something similar to what we have discussed in the signup underscore submit.php, so I will skip the remaining part. Please go through it. Next, we will move to the code of logout.php. This was a simple code and the file was already given to you as a starting point. Here, the first line will help to identify the session. And then, using the next line of code, we can destroy the session. And then, using the third line, we are directing the user to the home page again. This time, the user will be logged out. After this, let us move to the next part of the assignment. Here, in the city search form, your task was to add action and method. Let us go through the code. Here, you can see we have added the method as get and action as property underscore list.php. The next part is to change all the HTML to PHP files. This we have already discussed earlier in the video. Now let us move to the property list.php where we have to fetch the data from the database. Here, we have a session start function because we want to check if the user is logged in or not. Then we have this line of code to connect to the database. Now if the user is logged in, we will get his user underscore ID using the $_session. Next, the city name will be fetched from the URL using this line of code. Then in the next line, we are checking whether the city entered by the user is valid or not. We are checking the name entered by cross-referring to the cities table. After this, we have similar things. Like if the user enters an incorrect city name, we are printing the message, we do not have PG listed in this city. And if the city is present, we are fetching city underscore ID. And then using the city underscore ID, we are fetching the properties of that particular city. After this, we are storing all the properties in the properties array. Then we have this part of the code that will fetch properties that have been marked as interested by user. Next, we are using the properties array to fetch the number of properties for a particular city using the for each loop. If you remember in module 2 and 3 assignment, we had hard-coded this entire property list page. But now, as we have stored the data in the database, we are directly fetching from there for a particular property. And this glob is used to fetch the images from the database for the particular property. Then we have used the loop for the star rating. Please spend some time understanding this code. If you can understand this code, you will be able to understand the code and logic for the rest of the PHP files. With this, we have come to the end of another exciting video. Up next is a module test. All the best.